Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Goa Ahead. And the issue that we are discussing this week is about the new government and the agenda before the new government, or what the agenda should be. And we have three eminent panelists with me in the studio. First, I have Professor Nilesh Borde from Goa Business School of Goa University, who is our political analyst also and a number scientist also. Nilesh, welcome. Next, I have BJP MLA from Sangay constituency, Subhash Faldesai. Subhash Bab, first, congratulations on winning the election. It is great to have you in the studio as a MLA. And last but definitely not the least, I have Advocate Carlos Ferreira with me, Congress MLA from Aldona constituency, and one MLA, I think the entire Goa would agree, we all are happy to see you in the house. Carlos Bab, welcome.
Thank you.
Nilesh, I will start with you. When you look at this government, we all say government is a continuous process, but eventually when a government is formed, it is going to be formed with a different composition. The cabinet will not be the same. Many of the ministers have lost the election. Pramod Sawant is back, but with much more expectations and probably a mandate also. What do you think is the agenda before this government, and is this present strength of the government and the composition capable enough to fulfill that agenda?
So let me first begin with congratulating Dr. Pramod Sawant and his entire team and the BJP for getting the mandate for Goa. I also want to congratulate from the bottom of my heart to both my colleagues on the panel, Subhash Bab Faldesai as well as Advocate Carlos Ferreira. As you said very rightly, we are happy to see them in the assembly. Coming back to this government, I think this government is in a very unique position. This government is going to inherit its own burden. Because it was the same government which was in power in the last term. And so therefore, when it comes to a punching bag in a psychological form is not something that's going to be available with this government, because it is their own inheritance. Coming back to the agenda, yes, the government is saddled with a lot of problems, the biggest one being the economy. I think as a person from business studies, something that worries me a lot with respect to this government, I think it is economy. It is the state of Goan economy. And I'm sure as we go ahead in the program, we will discuss each of them in great detail. I also believe that another problem is ad hoc policies of the government. I think the government needs to now probably, with the kind of mandate they have, should sit down, look at Goa in a very holistic manner and create policies which will impact Goa, which will help Goa in a most positive manner. So that's another issue that I think the government should probably look at very seriously. Education is a very important thing that the government needs to take a very good look at, especially considering the fact that Goa is not just a great tourist destination, but I think the government should now start looking at creating some sort of an opportunity to have diversified classrooms. So that's a very important thing. And I very strongly pray to the Almighty, and I pray to Dr. Pramod Sawant and the entire BJP that the quality of ministry that now gets inducted should be clean. I'm not looking at the quality from the point of view of governance per se in the beginning, but at least let us start off with people who are clean and who have got a very good public image.
Very interesting point. I will go to each point one by one later. But Carlos Bab, you are an opposition party MLA, but I think entire state doesn't look at you only from that prism. But when you look at this government composition and the issues before the government, what would you think are the priorities and the agenda that this government needs to look at?
First thing I want to say that when you look at the composition of the MLAs who are there in the ruling dispensation, you have old-timers who are experienced hands. You also have fresh new faces who will be in the government. And I think this mixed bag would do a good deal to any political dispensation to be able to mete out justice in the fulfillment of the electoral promises which they made. But let me say one thing. As Professor Nilesh has rightly pointed out, they have inherited what they have brought over from the last governance. It's not 5 years, it is 10 years. And therefore you will see that whatever they have to carry forward, they'll have to carry beyond what they were doing before. Whether it is in roads, you look at it from the road angle, water or electricity, these are the basic necessity of life. And I will make one thing clear, that even when I went campaigning, I told my voters, electricity, water and roads, these are basic things which I should not come and tell you, it should be provided to you. And I think this is something which is fundamental, which every citizen has a right to have: good roads, good electricity and continuous water, at least sufficient water for sustenance. If you go around, you will see not only internal roads are not there, not existing or not done up, even you look at the highway, you could fall off that highway when you're going around. It's so bumpy and it's so bad. And I think we will have to even seek this thing about accountability on these kind of matters. Then you look at the tourism policy. The tourism policy is not only for saying the show must go on, but the tourism policy must be a real good policy, because finally, don't forget, with mining being closed, tourism is today the hen or the goose which lays the golden egg. So at least we should have a good policy in place, and I think the government will be able to deliver if they have something serious. It's not making plans. It's not some bureaucrat giving you a plan and putting it out. You must also be able to execute the plans. And I think the officers are good. You have to give them their direction. And I think once this direction is given, I think they should be able to deliver on many other things, which I have got many other things. Like what about jobs? Job creation. There is one thing, jobs, people are looking for jobs in the government. There are jobs also in the private sector which are good. But you must get good companies which pay you well, which also give you good opportunities, and also be able to place you at good place, because according to what you have studied, what are your qualifications, one doesn't have to go out or go and look out for jobs. Invite good companies, I think, and if this kind of an industrial policy is done by the government of Goa, I think we'll be able to handle this and make sure there's no brain drain of our people either out of Goa or abroad. Why should we lose our good people? Everybody looks to having his or her own child along with them. They want to live with them. People are going far away. They think of their parents at home. Parents think of their children abroad. And then finally everything gets disturbed. And I think that we should not allow this space to come in between. We should allow to help people come around. Even giving employment to the youth or the people who are idle, you see, eliminates a lot of unwanted activities, including crime. And I think these are things which the government should focus on.
Yeah, Subhash, many important issues: economy, ad hocism, education, giving a clean cabinet, tourism policy and employment. When you are looking at your own government, what do you think are your top priorities, or what should be your agenda, at least for the first 365 days?
Let me thank both the panelists who have contributed a lot and given good suggestions. As far as I do agree with all the points that they have taken up, they have rightly chosen the areas, priority areas which we need to focus on. And if you look at our government, we are in the government for last 10 years, even after such a long period and with different kind of situations and scenarios, we could sustain and we could come out of this if you look at the anti-incumbency, people have initially all the experts, they said that the BJP will not come in power again. But even then, the people of Goa has given a good boost and a good mandate, and we will strive hard to reach out to the people and all those areas with both the panelists have given us. So, we are going in the right direction. We will follow. The first thing that we need to focus on, that our human resource, how best we can deploy them and place them in areas or in the industrialization, good policies, good industries, pollution-free environment, giving them the good kind of job to sustain their family. All these kind of roads, electricity, water are the basic amenities that we need to focus on. And if you look at the efforts put in by our government for last 10 years in infrastructure building, such as roads, very wide roads and bridges that had never happened for last 50 years, that were taken up within in another the last 5 years, and we will carry on with this kind of. The tourism policy also needs to be improvised, and we need to see that a good quality tourist visit Goa, and they could participate in the economy of the Goa.
Subhash, one thing before I go to Nilesh again, both of them said that you are inheriting lot many issues, and you cannot blame anybody else for that. You have been in power for last 10 years. How are you looking at that point? Because may it be economy, may it be ad hoc policy or ad hocism in terms of policy making across, you have a real problem. Do you think, and you are the same chief minister continuing, many of the cabinet members might also be the same. What what different are we going to see this time?
I have full confidence in my government, and I'm confident enough to say that the dynamic chief minister like Dr. Pramod Sawant, who has taken the responsibilities of the state when the government was in a critical situation, and even after these cyclones and multiple problems like Corona, COVID, in all this situation, he stood up and he has given a good administration. Looking at that, I do agree that we carry a lot of baggage, and we need to have put in a good administration right now when we have got a good face and good elected members who have got a credentials and quality ministry we are looking for, which will deliver the best to the Goans.
Nilesh, how do you respond to that point by Subhash Bhai? He says ki, yes, there are issues that you need to look at, but they have also got this mandate because of what they have done during last 10 years. And the biggest thing, I think the poster initiative is the infrastructure, which is something that everybody can see, feel, experience. Do you think this mandate is also an outcome of what the government has delivered during last 5-7 years, or are you disconnecting it from the performance and you are looking into other aspects of it?
No, I believe that this government coming back and getting the kind of mandate it has got many other factors to it than just the tangible infrastructure, as we call it. I mean, having roads, having wide roads and bridges is one aspect, but not getting water in your house, in your tap, is completely another one. Not getting proper lights is a completely another one. I mean, so these are some of the issues which are completely different. So I think today is not a day probably to figure out why did they win and why did they get that mandate. But the point is, yes, they have got a mandate. They need to carry on, and I think they need to do a good job. So I think the first important thing that they need to start looking at are basics. There are very simple basics, Pramod, that we need to look at. So one of the things like Advocate Carlos Ferreira was saying is an HR audit. Okay, you need to do a complete HR audit of all the government departments in order to figure out where do you find surplus, because then you can easily use those surplus. I think basically government MLAs going and promising government jobs is the most blasphemous thing that can ever happen in any democracy.
Not only promise, even deliver on those.
Now, deliver, I'm not going to again, as I said, comment on, because I'm not sure about it, but I'm just saying that even getting or showing that kind of a carrot, I think in a democracy in a 21st century, when people have to think out of the box and people have to look at entrepreneurship, people have to kind of start creating that kind of a paraphernalia and ecosystem for themselves. Giving and promising government job carrot is basically not a great deal to happen. And especially when I'm sure if they do an HR audit of all their government departments, they'll find a lot of government departments where there is surplus staff that can easily be utilized.
Carlos Bob, do you agree this government jobs thing is going to be a major problem for this government? Because yes, before the election, a lot of government jobs were promised. Many were delivered also, some are yet to be delivered. It's going to be a very tricky issue. You spoke about the employment. Somehow our definition of employment has become constrained only to government employment.
See, what happens is, it is a known fact that jobs were being announced and certain MLAs or ministers were cornering the jobs for their constituents. Naturally, they would like to promote themselves, and especially when it's time for election, everyone wants to rush to make sure their voters are satisfied. Sometimes it can have a reverse effect, because in case you're satisfied, a certain percentage, the balance is not satisfied, it can boomerang on you. And many of them face flack also for this. But before I continue with it, one small thing about, I know that Professor Nilesh did not dwell on this question of the mandate of the government, because though my colleague Mr. Subhash Desai spoke about the mandate given, it is truly not a mandate given to the BJP. They may have won by the system of democracy here, but if you look at the totality of the votes, it is anti-BJP. It is only split and they have walked through. So that is how it is not acknowledgement of...
You don't want to call it a mandate?
I don't call it a mandate. They have just won the game, the race. But as far as these jobs are concerned, you look at the financial burden, as Professor Nilesh has pointed out rightly. We are already in doldrums with the financial situation of the state. We are in debt. you are creating this kind of large number of job opportunities in the government. Where do you pay them? You don't have money to pay the present staff. You don't have money to pay the contractors. And you don't have money to do any further work. We are only taking loan after loan. Would you be able to pay them? Today, even you look at it, certain jobs in government, they are even promoting people on ad hoc basis, not even giving them regular appointments on on promotional scales. And that because, the financial burden will multiply each financial year. So you just give them an ad hoc, so it becomes like a fixed amount which you keep giving them. So this kind of things, I think, is going to be a danger which the government will have to look very seriously. And those people who were accommodated. And let me be honest one thing. And everyone knows, in fact, there were allegations by ruling party MLAs who said that jobs were being sold. And it's a fact because I also heard by people coming to me and said, we can't afford this much, we are ready to pay this much. I got a shock because I know that even if I've helped anybody to give a job, it was always free of cost. I've always said to someone, if you have money, open a gada and do business, but don't pay money and get a job. But this is the way things sadly went on.
But this is very interesting. Subhash Bab, do you agree this government job thing, because we are talking about economy, we are talking about employment, and we are talking about the human resource, and all these three things are interconnected. Mining, I don't think the solution is in sight at all. Tourism, we are struggling post-COVID, and then there comes an election where the entire political class decides to go on a government job distribution spree. How difficult is the situation?
No, we understand that the government jobs, the people look for a government job. They don't want any other job, even if it is highly paid. They feel that it is a secure job. I do agree with Mr. Nilesh saying that HR audit is very much necessary, because I just cannot promise now today elections are over now. So we just cannot, I do not want to fight with you all.
Far more
but
truthful.
It is, this discussion, this panel discussion should help the government to come out with a clear vision for the Goans and how we should set our priorities. Looking at this HR audit is very important task that he has figured out, and we need to identify the places wherein who has got efficient people in the, and where
is the surplus,
and where is the surplus. If you can get the surplus to divert them in another department to work fully. So this is a kind of thing, but at last the government need to come out with the government jobs also to cater to the services of the people, and it's because of that. But one thing, it shouldn't happen the way people have talked about it. I do not know the real fact, but it is very unfortunate to say that the people need to pay money for the job. But I don't think the government has done it. It may be some one or two people who were doing this, but government need to identify those people and eliminate from them from the system. So we need to put our youngsters and young enthusiastic force in a good...
Nilesh, I'm tempted to ask you, and then I'll go to Subhash Bab also, that Carlos Bab made that statement that this is not a mandate, they have just won an election. How do you look at it? And then, because why I'm saying is, because if it is a mandate, that the government usually is in a far stronger position to exercise its agenda. Where it's just an election won, with so many votes against you, you're always second guessing yourself. How do you look at it?
Yeah, so now suppose somebody wants to write down numbers right now, it is possible. But let me just put it like this. I mean, somebody said very beautifully, I think it was the Panji MLA, I think Babush Monserrat, who said this, Jo Jeeta Wahi Sikandar. And at the end of the day, they just accept the fact that they have won. Why did they win is a thing that I think we need to, it's for a thing that, it's a thing for a past.
Yeah.
They have won. They have got a mandate, as in they have got those 20 seats. So that simply means that they are just about a seat short from an absolute majority. So I think what we are now looking at is when you have such a formidable force that has come into the assembly from your party, I think it's time that you start taking some tough calls. You start taking calls like the way your party usually says, nation first, state next, and party third, and you last. Right? So you keep the state now in mind. Look at, so for keeping the state in mind, it's like, for example, Corona. Corona was a problem. You needed to take a vaccine. The vaccine pains, but you still end up taking a vaccine, right? So you will have to take tough calls. Take those tough calls because Goa has to be put on the right spot. You might have to hurt a lot of your people who are probably been very friendly with you. Like, for example, the real estates. I think there is a massive problem with the real estate. We are losing out on our water resources because of unplanned development of real estate. Look at, I've been constantly saying this, Pramod, when I'm on your show. Please stand outside the Dempo house in Panji market and look on the other side. I think the only thing that can describe Goa, where you look at that hill, is vulgar. It really looks absolutely horrific. How can I promote tourism in such situations? It is not possible. How can I tell people to come to Mandavi River when it is completely cluttered? How can I tell people to come to Goa with family when the kind of perception that is carried out about Goa outside is about drugs, sex and gamble? I mean, think about it. As a government, I think at the end of the day, there are some tough calls required. Please take them because, as you said, state is to be kept above your individual objectives.
Carlos Bab, you agree some tough calls required? What are those tough calls, in spite of being in the opposition, you would like to see from this government?
See, I agree, and it is time that you see they got 5 years ahead, and I think if they do a cleanup now itself, and I think that Dr. Pramod Sawant, having enjoyed as being the Chief Minister and being returned, would have the right to exercise the tough decision, and I think people will support him. All good people will support him, including the opposition will support him. Trust me. It's not, we will not be opposing for the sake of opposing, but we will have a constructive opposition. If he has to take the tough call, I think time is now, because if you don't do it now, Goa will be finished.
Let's spoke about Carlos Bab, about a clean cabinet. Frankly, because you come from a school of thought where many people have started saying that a person like you should be the leader of opposition. But we know that the political reality and our wishful thinking are two different things. But when you look at the composition of the cabinet today, what kind of a cabinet you would like to see?
See, the cabinet must have people who are not only educated, but also people who can perform. Because remember, our first Chief Minister, Dayanand Bandodkar, himself, he didn't require to be a postgraduate or a doctor in any field, but still he could govern. So you have people who may not be necessarily highly qualified, but if they know administration, they can see the people's problems, especially the poor man's problems. If they can reach out to them and they can give a direction, finally the bureaucracy is there to help. The bureaucracy will be the ones who will put it down in paper and then execute it. So they are the ones required. So I think it's not necessary that everyone educated should be the... If you remember at time of Prime Minister VP Singh, it had the highest, most educated MPs in the House, and yet they all fought and the government fell. So we can't have this kind of a situation.
Yeah.
So, but I think it should be, I agree it should be clean, but necessarily the government numbers may not work with
eventually it needs
that.
to perform.
It requires to perform.
Eventually it needs to perform.
Yeah.
So, Nilesh, before I go to Subhash Bab, do you think this journey of Pramod Sawant from selected Chief Minister to elected Chief Minister, this Pramod Sawant 2.0, can we expect, if you look at the kind of MLAs he has got, if you look at the kind of pressures he has got, can we expect to see a different Pramod Sawant, or it will be just continuation of the last episode?
Very frankly, I think, Pramod, I'm not a political person at all, but whatever little I understand sitting on the fence is a very simple thing. The central government, which is all powerful, is in support of Dr. Pramod Sawant. Pramod Sawant, as you said very correctly, now is an elected Chief Minister. Pramod Sawant has got he's got 20 seats for himself. I know that today defection from even within the party is not possible. So even if the defection has to happen it will happen only from opposition party to his party. So the point is, he has nothing to lose. There is nothing that should stop him from taking some tough stands. And I can assure you, with all support that he has got from everybody around him, there is just no chance that he can be questioned. And so I think Dr. Pramod Sawant now should keep Goa first. should keep Goa ahead, as a thing says very correctly. He must keep Goa ahead and see to it that the decisions are taken, even if they are tough, even if they hurt a few people who probably could be from his own parties. But please think about Goa first and take decisions, whether it is right from forming the ministry to forming the policies to taking decisions at the end of the day.
Subhash Bab, final words. Can we expect, because you have been in the government from 2012 to 2017, you have been on the ruling side. And one of the, I think, biggest grievance people of Goa had against that government in 2012, that we gave you the mandate, but you did not deliver on some of the tough calls, as Nilesh calls them, during that tenure. That you promised us those tough calls when you were in opposition. When you came to power, you did not deliver on those tough calls. Now, this again, for you, Subhash Bab, this is 2.0. Can we expect something else in this 2.0?
Definitely, we have our own government. We have 20 members got elected from our party. And I don't think anybody else will... I mean, the mandate is as such, though Kalus Bab said that it is not a clear mandate or a clear verdict to the...
No, we can
BJP.
expect, the bare minimum, we can expect stability.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
The stability is one aspect which
Yeah.
we were focusing right from beginning. We asked the voters to vote for stability and a very good performing government.
Sthirata ani Vikas.
Sthirata and Ani Vikas. So we are after development also, and the Kalus Bab said that government or the Nilesh also has said that government need to take tough stand. I do agree with that. When you have a strong government, when you have a stable government, whichever decisions which are required to be taken on time, you must take it, and without fearing of the consequences and what is required for Goa. We must see that Goa, the first priority.
Interest of Goa is put first.
Rather than looking at the interest of other ministers or MLAs or anybody else in the government. So we have full confidence.
We will see a different 2.0.
Definitely, I do agree with that. And Dr. Pramod Samant will perform at this time because he has got no fear of any kind, because we have a full mandate which was given by the Goa people.
I'm ending the program, I'm ending the show on that point. We all expect a different 2.0. As citizens, we expect a different 2.0 because we have the kind of MLAs that two of them, I think everybody watching this show in Goa and outside would agree that these are the kind of MLAs that you like to see in your assembly. And that's why we expect you guys to perform and give us something different, something decisive, and the tough calls that are necessary, as Nilesh calls them. We will be all very grateful if you can deliver on those. Nilesh, Subhash Bab, Kalus Bab, thanks a lot for joining me on this.
Thanks for
Keep
having us.
watching.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.